Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have a devotion. We've been going through Deborah's song following the massive and miraculous military victory that God gave in Judges chapter 4, and she has more to sing. Judges chapter 5, verse 12. Awake, awake, Deborah. Awake, awake, sing a song. Yeah, it's the appropriate time for that. And then indeed, arise, Barak. This was Deborah's ministry in chapter 4, in addition to her prophecy, reaffirming the fact that God was going to hand the army over to the people of God. That was her prophecy. She also just goes along with Barak to encourage him, which again, he should have been willing to do what God called him to do. Arise, Barak, and take your prisoners. All right. In other words, like, be a man, son of Abinoam. You can see how this is a call into masculinity. Women calling men to act like men, especially Deborah calling Barak to act like a general already. And his attitude is, yeah, I'll go if you go with me. Then the survivors came down to the nobles. The Lord's people came down to me against the warriors. So she has a part to play in this story. It was supposed to be all Barak. She was telling Barak to go and do what God had told him to do, but he rendered his obedience to his calling conditional upon Deborah going with him. Okay, in other words, he threatened not to obey unless Deborah came with him. That's the issue. This is one of our discussion questions in our curriculum this week. Right? You can't render your obedience to God's call in your life upon someone else's actions. Like John and Peter in John 21, what is it to you what God has called someone else to do? You do what God has called you to do. Those with their roots in Amalek, these were giants, came from Ephraim. Benjamin came with your people after you. The leaders came down from Machir, and those who carry a martial staff came from Zebulun. All right, so we know that 10,000 men from the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali came with Barak. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah. Issachar was with Barak. Right, so this is an interesting statement because she acknowledges that in a titular sense, Barak is the one who's supposed to be commanding the armies. Right? But they're also there partially because of Deborah. I don't think that they were particularly inspired by the leadership of a man like Barak. Instead, they were there because Deborah was there. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah. Issachar was with Barak. These are both talking about Issachar. They were under his leadership in the valley. So she acknowledges the fact, like, look, he was the one who was leading things. I was just there to support him. But it's likely that if Deborah were not there, the men may not have come. We don't know. There was great searching of heart among the clans of Reuben. You're going to see this come up because remember, this is a song. This is Deborah's song and Barak's song. So songs have choruses that repeat, and this is sort of a refrain that will repeat later. And it has to do with, okay, there's a battle going on. Am I going to join it? That's critical. Why did you sit among the sheep pens, listening to the playing of pipes for the flocks? There was great searching of heart among the clans of Reuben. We're going to come back to this. Gilead remained beyond the Jordan. Dan, why did you linger at the ships? The tribe of Dan is going to prove to be a huge pain. I mean, literal physical pain, spiritual, massive, large-scale suffering kind of pain later on in the book of Judges, and it kind of begins here. Asher remained at the seashore and stayed in his harbors. All right, so I have a son named Asher, but like the tribe of Asher, he's not entirely perfect. They were not joining in with the battle. They were remaining by the seashore. The people of Zebulun defied death. Naphtali also on the heights of the battlefield. So she's calling out the tribes of Asher and Reuben and Dan for not joining the battle. But she points out the fact that, look, Zebulun and Naphtali defied death. There were no casualties, evidently, if that's how this verse is to be interpreted. Even if there were a few casualties, we know that it was a massive victory. But this seems to suggest that no one from Zebulun or Naphtali died, and that would fit with the narrative of Judges chapter 4, wherein God caused the enemy army to fall into a massive confusion, and every one of them was put to the sword, including the 900 iron charioteers. It does not say that the charioteers were made of iron, rather their chariots were made of iron. And so that there were no casualties means that these 10,000 men from Zebulun and Naphtali volunteered for battle, and not one of them died. But then she's calling out the guys who were lingering in the familiar. Why did you sit among the sheep pens listening to the playing of pipes for the flocks? You can picture shepherds playing peaceful, beautiful music for the sheep while there's a battle going on. And these men who should have been with their general fighting this battle are instead hanging out, listening to the playing of pipes. There was great searching of heart among the clans of Reuben, which means that you can picture some men sitting there listening to the pipe playing by the flocks, thinking, I should be out there. I should be risking alongside my brother. I should be risking my life alongside my brothers for this cause. Dan, why did you linger at the ships? Why did you linger instead of volunteer the way that the men of Zebulun and Naphtali did? Asher remained at the seashore and stayed in his harbors. All right, are you staying in your harbor when it comes to evangelism in the Pacific Northwest? Are you lingering at the ships when it comes to stepping out as a Christian, inviting a friend to church? Are you just chilling, listening to the playing of pipes for the flocks? Or are you actually taking a risk and doing something to see that you might actually lead some people to Jesus? Don't just sit among the sheep pens, or Deborah will write a Taylor Swift style song about you. Don't linger. Instead, join us in battle. Invite friends to church. Bring up the gospel. See people come to Jesus.